Hi, this is Mark Birch with a quick revision of John Donne's selected poems. Welcome back to part 2 of The Ecstasy, and we're going to go straight into it because this is a weird moment where Donne introduces a hypothetical observer of the negotiation of the lovers' souls. The observer is imagined to be someone refined by love. This, of course, as you'll probably appreciate by now, is an alchemical reference to purification. So the imagined observer has been purified to the point that they can understand the language of the souls. Only someone who's experienced love refined through good love is able to understand the nature of the lovers' communion. So Donne imagines what would happen if such an observer stood close by, within convenient distance. He insists that the observer wouldn't be able to distinguish the voices of the souls because they're so perfectly attuned that they think and say the same thing. The observer would be enriched by the experience, leaving far purer. And so once again, we've got this concept of purification, which is extending this alchemical conceit and is also evident in the noun concoction. A contemporary understanding of the word as a mixture works in this sense, but an Elizabethan would have recognised it to have a more specific denotation of a substance that's been purified by heat. Hence, the observer is purified by the intensity, the heat of the love that they're witnessing. The reader then hears the voices of the souls, although Donne doesn't employ speech marks, complementing the sense of language that's detached from conventional speech. The speech of the unified souls continues to the end of the poem, but we've always got this strange sense of it being unconventional. It's not the language of the physical, it's the language of the spirit, the soul. Donne presents the souls recognising that the process of this ecstasy is a demystifying process. It doth unperplex. Now that the souls are free of their bodies, they can recognise that it wasn't sex that had motivated them to love each other. It's got to be something else. Before the ecstasy, they didn't know what had motivated them. Well, Elizabethans believed that the soul performed a variety of functions and as a result had to be composed of a number of elements, a mixture of things. Love mixes the soul still further, blending the two lovers so that the two become one, indistinguishable from one another, each this and that. But it's those vague pronouns that are interesting in that they complement the sense of it being impossible to identify one from another. They're just this or that. This is where we go back to the horticultural motif from earlier in the poem. Donne suggests that by transplanting a violet, its qualities will be improved. So a single violet in a bunch of violets might be trying to compete for the nutrients in the soil, but removing it and planting it somewhere else allows it to flourish. So violets are able to propagate themselves. So transplanting a single flower can give it that capacity to redouble and increase its colour and its size away from the competition of other flowers. And the sense here is of them being transplanted. They are out of the restrictions of the body and are recognising their own growth and purity at this point. The image of the transplanted violet is presented as analogous to the situation of the two souls. When transplanted from their bodies, love gives life, interanimates the souls as one, creating an abler soul that mirrors the transplanted violet in terms of being stronger. The strength of that new soul is based on the mixture of the souls, which permits the removal of any defects, the principal defect being loneliness. They can never be lonely because the two are one. That new soul is presented as self-aware in the sense of recognising the forms, male and female souls, that are its composite elements. The atoms or atomies of the soul are immutable. No change can invade. And it's interesting that he's chosen to use that militaristic verb, invade, which reminds the reader of the conceit of two equal armies earlier in the poem, giving it that sense of consistency. It seems paradoxical that these unchanging souls can become this new soul, but Donne asserts that this is why the composition of the new soul is recognised. The original souls aren't changed, they are immutable, they're just mixed or merged. The exclamative indicates a shift in tone as Donne moves on to an existential consideration of the significance of the body. But oh, alas! The soul's voice asks, basically, why they've abandoned their bodies for so long. After having established this powerful, interconnected soul, there's a consideration of, those bodies were left behind, was that a good idea? The length of the absence is dramatically conveyed through the anaphora of the adjectival intensifier so, and the use of adjectives that represent distance in space and time, far and long. The bodies are presented as possessions of the soul. They are ours, but they don't define them. They're not we. The combination of caesura and enjambment allows we are to appear as an existential assertion of identity being found in the soul, as opposed to earlier in the poem when the identity was essentially with the physical body. The relationship between body and soul is established through the cosmological metaphor that follows this enjambment. The souls are the angels, or intelligences, that were believed to control the celestial spheres. The soul is, therefore, the superior force that controls the movement of the physical form, which is represented here as the sphere. The soul's voice claims that they owe the bodies a debt of thanks because it was through the bodies that they met. But the superiority of the soul is evident in the representation of power through the verb yielded. The bodies submit the power of their senses to the control of the soul, just as the sphere is controlled by the intelligence on that celestial realm. Donne returns to the alchemical conceit, stating that the bodies are not dross, which is a waste product produced in an alchemical reaction, but alloy, something added to metal in order to strengthen it. And this reinforces the argument based on the transplantation of the violet. This time, the body is not superfluous and wasteful, but a useful addition to the self. Religious concepts are then introduced, creating a parallel between the way that angels cannot influence humanity directly, but only through the medium of air, as we saw in Air and Angels. They basically need this other medium in order to interact. They are incredibly refined, the angelic forms or the soul forms, and therefore they need to have this less refined medium, in the case of angels it's air, to be able to interact with the more base form of the physical. In the case of the souls, they've got to be able to interact with the bodies in order to be able to influence and engage with the world. Donne refers to the medieval belief that soul and body are connected through vapours or spirits in the blood. The vapours are metaphorically described as fingers that are required to tie the subtle knot that combines soul and body to make a human. That word subtle suggests difficult to perceive. It's difficult to understand this physiological process. Donne concludes the analogy in this quatrain. Just as blood must tie the soul to the body in order to permit interaction with the world, so pure lovers' souls must commit themselves to the body's senses so that they can experience emotions, or what he describes as affections. And finally, dramatically, Donne suggests that failing to do this results in the imprisonment of a great prince. The prince could metaphorically refer to the soul or to love, but in either case, there's a sense of injustice and waste. The prison of the spiritual realm, divorced from the physical, is clearly rejected as wasteful. It's almost like dross. Donne claims that the souls should return to their bodies so that they can act as an exemplar of love. Through them, love will be revealed to weak men. It's accepted that love grows in the soul, but it's only evident physically. Hence, the body is love's book in which others may read its existence. Donne uses a paradox in the phrase dialogue of one, referring to the communion of the conjoined souls. The paradox serves to reinforce the alien nature of such a dialogue. It's a love that's literally beyond the senses. Obviously, a dialogue is of two people, so a dialogue of one is a very explicit paradox. However, Donne claims that when the souls have returned to their bodies, the hypothetical observer will notice very little change. The union of the lovers is preserved when they're embodied, for their love is so mutually attuned. So even though they've been conjoined with the physical realm, they still exhibit the kind of connectedness that previously was only apparent when they were on the spiritual realm of an ecstasy. So if we just conclude with a quick look at the structure, in terms of stanzas, we've got an undivided single stanza, which presents this clear sense of unity that may represent the conjoined soul and perfect union of the love described. It could be divided into regular quatrains, but again, this could represent continuity and consistency of love, given that the quatrains are so regular. In terms of metre, it's iambic tetrameter throughout. Again, so there's a strong sense of regularity representing that continuity and consistency of love. And finally, the rhyme scheme, ABBA across each quatrain. So again, regularity and really conspicuous connection. Okay, thanks ever so much, folks. Take care. Ta.